She has an almost 20-year career at Nasdaq under her belt, bifurcated only by a 3-year stretch as CFO of private equity heavyweight Carlyle. Here to talk about her Wall Street success and the next 20 years in the industry is Nasdaq President Adena Friedman. Adena, welcome. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks so much.
So you've had quite the career at Nasdaq. And you began as an intern there. And what I think is really interesting about your career is that you've managed to stay in the same 2 places throughout the entirety of it, which I feel like is a very rare thing these days. People go to one job and then they leave after a few years and kind of hop. What made you come back to Nasdaq after Carlyle?
Sure. Well, I think it's important to look at a little bit what drew me to Carlyle in the first place.
Sure.
Carlyle is an amazing firm. My family lives in Washington, D.C., and Carlyle is the predominant financial institution in Washington, and they were going through a big change within their own organization by looking at going public, and they were looking for a CFO to help them do that. So it was a wonderful opportunity for me to help navigate that process through and to help really grow and build out their finance and IT organizations to be able to support being a public company. It was a wonderful chance for me to grow my skills. At the same time, I'd been a CFO at Nasdaq for 2 years prior to leaving, and then 3 years at Carlyle. But other than that, I've always been on the business side.
Right.
Running a P&L and working with clients. And I have to say, after 5 years as CFO, I really missed the client side of things, and I really missed the pressure and the excitement of having that P&L responsibility. So when Nasdaq called and asked if I could take over as president of a large portion of the business, it was such a huge opportunity I couldn't pass it up, even though Carlyle really was a great place to work.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. How did those CFO roles prepare you for your role now as president?
It's a great question, because having financial discipline is a really, really critical skill to any sort of business job. And I think that also understanding the way that investors look at a company. So as a public company, we're always scrutinized by investors. So as a CFO, we are the face of the company to the investing public. And I have an opportunity to develop good relationships with the investors that invested in both Nasdaq and Carlyle, to see the world from their point of view and to understand what they care about. Translates very well into understanding as a business owner, you have to make sure that you're planning for the long term, but you do still need to have the financial discipline and the ability to explain your business to the investing public.
Absolutely. Speaking of the investing public and the public in general, as you well know, coming back to Nasdaq helped fuel a lot of speculation about succession at the company. When you returned, there was even a Reuters article that named a source who said that essentially the CEO job was yours to lose. Regardless of whether you take it or if it's offered, is going to the top of the C-suite, a CEO level position, something that is on your long-term horizon, something that you could see yourself doing before your career is over?
Sure. So having come back to Nasdaq, I've partnered very well with Bob Greifeld, who is the CEO, and he and I have frankly been long-term partners because I worked for him before I left.
Absolutely.
And we really do see eye to eye on a lot of things. So it's been a wonderful relationship. So regardless of what might or might not happen at Nasdaq, it's really more about what's my long-term ambition. And my long-term ambition is to be a CEO, but my view on that is that it can't just be the CEO of any company. I think to be the best CEO you can be, you have to be passionate about the business that you're running. And I have true passion for the financial markets and passion for the financial industry. So to me, it really has to be, you have to pour your heart and soul into that role.
Right.
So you have to make sure that it's a place where you feel really strongly and passionately about what you're doing and the help that and the benefit you're giving to the public.
Absolutely. And it seems like Nasdaq is a place where you've spent a lot of your time. It seems like if that were to come up, it might be a good fit for you. Speaking of your career, I know you're very busy with new projects in the pipeline this year. What do you have coming down the line? What are you working on?
Sure. So we always have a lot of things, really interesting and fun things going on at Nasdaq, and I could dissect the business into a lot of pieces. But there are 3 major things that we're really focused on right now within Nasdaq. The first thing is the blockchain. The blockchain, as you know, is kind of the architecture and infrastructure underneath Bitcoin. And while Bitcoin is a very specific manifestation of the technology, the blockchain is the actual technology that underpins Bitcoin. And the blockchain has a chance to fundamentally change the post-trade environment within the world, so across all asset classes. But we certainly see that as a real opportunity for us in what we call post-trade, so after the trade, between trading and settlement. The second big initiative is NFX, which is our Nasdaq Futures Exchange, and we launched that just a couple of weeks ago. And we have 65 participants who've already joined us. We have about over 10,000 contracts trading a day in 26 different instruments in energy in the U.S. And so it's really gotten off to a great start.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got a lot going on.
Yeah, and then the third thing is smart beta. So looking at the way that investors are looking at what we call outcome-oriented investing, and the ability to use indexes to allow them to invest in an index, not having to pick individual stocks, but still get alpha in the market. And we believe smart beta is the way to go. And we have about $48 billion of assets under management tied to our smart beta indexes today.
That's exciting. A lot of exciting projects you're working on. What would you say, what would be a good piece of advice that you wish that you had had, or a piece of advice you could give your younger self? What is one thing you wish you would have known when you were starting your career?
Well, honestly, the one thing, so I have been a working mother almost my entire career. So I had children fairly young. And you go through a period of great amounts of guilt about being a working mother. And at the same time, now my children are 19 and 17, and they're wonderful, successful, happy, wonderful boys. And so you also see that I was able to spend a lot of time with them. And I made sure that I carved out the time that I needed and that they needed for me to be there. And that my company, both of companies, frankly, have been extraordinarily helpful in that. So you live with this incredible guilt. But the fact of the matter is that I really believe that at the end of the day, I've been a better parent from being a working mother. And so I wish that I hadn't been burdened with that amount of guilt for so long. I wish that someone had said it's okay. It's a matter of prioritizing your family outside of work so that you are there for the important things.
That makes sense. So I want to just talk briefly about kind of the market environment, get your perspective. Some on Wall Street see a tech bubble brewing, and I feel like it's a topic that's been talked about a lot, but it's one that kind of stays there. Biotech bubble with these companies that have these sky-high valuations. What do you see? Do you see a bubble in the tech realm, in the tech sector? What are your thoughts?
I think that what I see is the fact that there's a huge amount of change that's occurring in our economy, and that every part of our economy is being impacted by technology, and including the healthcare sector, but also every sector is having technology is having a huge influence on it. So you can realize that there's just a lot of, I think, optimistic views about how this technology could really change people's lives, either in healthcare or in the financial industry or in industrials, wherever. And so I think that I think that people are just looking at that and saying there's a movement going on here, and I want to be part of that movement. And there's a huge amount of change and a runway in terms of what technology can do for the economy and do for society, and I want to be part of that too. And so that also, lastly, there's a lot of money to work right now. So investors are sitting on a lot of cash, and they want to find that return. And they're willing to take some risk in things like technology and biotech. And then they also look at the fact that they can put some, they have a lot of other asset classes that they can choose to invest in that don't introduce as much risk, and it allows them to diversify their portfolio.
Sure. So with technology's role on Wall Street, as you kind of mentioned, people either like it or they hate it. They see it as a great thing that's really helped advance the industry, or they see it as something that kind of makes it more impersonal. What's your view? Where do you see it going and fitting in technology's role on Wall Street, like in the next 5, 10, 15 years?
Well, I do think that there's a balance. And I think it's a balance between the ability for technology to open up the world of investing to a much broader population. And if you look at, frankly, the 90s were really defined by Schwab and Ameritrade and other firms coming in and opening up investing to individual investors in a way they never had before.
Right, exactly.
And I think that technology has the ability to continue to do that and to what I would call democratize the financial markets in a lot of ways. But I also think that you need to have a lot of human judgment involved in the financial industry in terms of risk management, in terms of investment decisions, and things that really allow us to have kind of blend the best of technology and the human brain. And I believe that that's the balance that we have, but we need to continue to have. In terms of the actual transaction itself, that can flow into a machine and get done. In terms of all of the inputs that you use to make that decision, that needs to be done through a balance of technology and the human.
So humans aren't going anywhere on Wall Street.
That's right.
Adina, thank you so much for your perspective. It was great having you in.
Great, thank you so much. It was great to see you.